Hi, I'm Ruben Saltzman with Structure Tech Home Inspections, and today I'm going to show you how to use a moisture meter. So moisture meters work two ways. You can have pin probes where you stick these pins into a suspect surface, or you could have scan mode, and it does it pinlessly. It's damage-free. And then some moisture meters like this one have both of them built into one meter. That's what I like. This particular one is called the Survey Master. This is what everybody in my company at Structure Tech uses. We've been using these for a long time. I am completely sold on this one. I hate every other moisture meter. No, I kid. But I really do like this one. This is the second generation of Survey Masters. The first generation is basically gone. You will not find those again. This one, you can find a ton of these on eBay. I like this style because it's really skinny and it fits into a tool pouch really well. And then they came out with a third generation, and now the third generation is out of production and they're on to a fourth generation, which looks a lot like the first generation. I don't like any of the newer ones because they're a lot bigger and boxier. I'm sure they're great, but I just like the old style. Personal preference. So, at any rate, this is the Survey Master, and let's go over how any moisture meter works. First, you've got the pin probes, and these work by you stick the pins into a suspected wet material, and it's going to leave a couple of holes in the material. So, if I'm going to be testing something, it better not be a finished wall or a ceiling that someone's going to see. You can't just put holes in there. You need to use this very gently. And the way it works is these two pins are going to send a little bit of electricity across whatever material you're sticking it into. And the more wet something is, the lower the resistance and the higher the moisture content. And that's about it. I mean, it's a pretty basic device. I'm going to turn this one on, and I'll hold it up to the screen here. You can see right now it's showing 0. If I put my sweaty palm on these pin probes, it'll get it pretty high. If you push really hard, it'll make the pins turn red. And then if you want, for this particular moisture meter, they've also got some external probes that you can purchase. The unit comes with 5-inch external probes that look like this, but here in Minnesota, we've got a lot more. We've been building with 2x6 construction for a long time, and these wall probes that come with it are only 5 inches deep, so you can buy 9-inch probes that will get you from the inside of a finished wall all the way through the wall into the exterior sheathing, and these are 9-inch probes. So I think it's a nice add-on. And the way it works, let me see if I can hold this up here. We'll put this all in one hand. As I'm touching the outside of the probes, you can see nothing's happening on my moisture meter. As soon as I put it, oh, did it shut off? Oh gosh, let's try that again. You can see nothing's happening as I'm touching the outside of these. Then as I touch the tops, it lights up. So that's how these deep wall probes work. Most moisture meters don't have external jacks for fun little gadgets like that. This one does. And what it's displaying, you'll notice as I was doing that, we got 3 different types of feedback. Number 1, you had a color. It starts out green. Once it gets yellow, that's a questionable moisture level. And then once it gets red, we're probably in the problem zone. And you also heard it ticking louder once it got to the red, ticking faster, I should say. And then also on the display, it has this thing, it says, probably can't read it here, it says WME, stands for Wood Moisture Equivalent. And it's telling you how much moisture content something's going to have if it's wood. Now, we use these for all different kinds of things. I mean, I stick it in drywall a lot, and wood, sheathing, other materials. So I'm very cautious to not really report on those numbers. I don't think it's a good thing to tell my clients about. I don't want to tell them exactly what the moisture content of something is. I'm more thinking about the color on here, and I'm identifying whether something has more moisture than it ought to have. And it's always identifying a moisture problem. I'm always checking a known dry area, and then I'm checking a suspected wet area, and I'm checking to see if we got water coming in somewhere. So that's what this number means. Now, the other way these things work is with scan mode. I'll turn this on. It goes back to the pin probe, and I hit this little play button on here. That switches modes, and now we're on scan mode. And when I hold my hand against the back of this here, you can see that the number goes way high. The number is just a number. It's not telling you the moisture content of anything. It's just telling you how much we've got when nothing's happening, how much we've got when a lot of stuff is happening. And it's some type of scale. And you'll notice it gave me the same type of feedback that the pin probes did. It gave me audible feedback, it gave me a color indicator, and it also gave me a number. And it's even more important when a home inspector or anybody is using a moisture meter. Don't report on the exact number that you're giving or that you're given with the device. Just talk about how there is an elevated level of moisture. That's really what we're concerned about with these things. So that's the basic operation. We've got pin probe and scan mode. And let's see, is there anything else I wanted to talk about? I think that's it. Let's get into actually using this device, and I'm going to go through a ton of examples. I took a lot of footage, and we're going to talk through this all. To start off the experiment, I figured I would take a tablespoon of water and pour it on the back side of a piece of drywall, and we're just going to let that soak up so we've got a known wet area. And now we're going to use scan mode. I start by turning it on, and I'm going to hold my finger against the back of this thing to hear it beep, just to make sure that I'm in the right mode. I'm in scanning mode. So I put it on a known dry area, and I slowly move it across to the suspected wet area. And once I get to the wet area, you can see I got all the things. I've got the colors, I've got the beeping, and I've got the higher numbers. And every time I move it over to this suspected wet area, it clearly tells me we've got a problem. And you'll note as I get to the edge of the wet area, the indicator slowly increases. That's exactly what we expect to see when you're finding a wet area of drywall. So now that we're done with scanning, let's switch it over to the pin probe mode. As I stick the probes into a dry area, you can see it registers about 10. That's our baseline. Now I gently touch the suspected wet area, and it turns red. Now you can see I was sloppy here. I was trying to do the soft touch where I didn't break the surface, and I actually did break the surface. If you're a home inspector, you never want to do that. Someone's going to find that little mark that you made, and they're going to freak out. And now here, I'm in an area where I don't care about, and I'm just shoving the probes right in. So now I'm sure you're wondering, how deep does this thing scan? It depends on the moisture meter. This particular one, the Survey Master, says they have a scan depth up to 3/4 of an inch. It doesn't mean you're going to get exact results 3/4 of an inch deep. It means that after 3/4 of an inch, you're not going to get anything. So it depends on what you're scanning, how much moisture there is. There's a lot of variables. But for this instance, I took that same piece of wet drywall and I stacked a whole bunch of paper on top of it. I got about 3/8 of an inch of paper stacked on top, and I'm going to try scanning through it with my moisture meter again. And you can see it's not nearly as sensitive. We are picking up something when I get over to the moisture area, and then when I go to the known dry area, it goes to nothing. So my moisture meter is finding something there, but it's not nearly as alarming when it's got all this paper to go through. Something that's critically important for home inspectors to know about is false positives. As you can see, I'm using the scan mode here, and I'm moving it from a known dry area across the wall, and as soon as I get to the metal corner bead at the corner of the wall, this thing just starts screaming at me. It says, hey, there's tons of water in the wall. That is not water. We have simply run across metal. It's something that is a very dense surface. This is not water. These moisture meters are not super smart. They don't know the difference between water and something that's very dense. So think of it as a device that identifies density when you're using the scan mode. Besides all the stuff I was just showing you, we can use moisture meters in a lot of places around the outside of a house. For instance, vinyl siding. In this case, we were hired by a townhome association to do moisture testing on all of the existing townhomes after I had done a home inspection and I found a bunch of moisture below one of the windows. Here's an example of Antonio using the moisture meter to scan right through the vinyl siding, and what it's picking up here is the moisture content of the sheathing behind the vinyl siding. And when we're doing specialized inspections like this, once we find a suspected wet area, we follow up by peeling back some of the siding and then taking the pin probes in our moisture meter and sticking it into the suspected wet area to confirm that this area is definitely wet. It's not just some weird material that's behind the vinyl siding giving us a false positive. And in this case, as you can see as he's poking around here, that sheathing is just kind of mushy. We use our moisture meters on vinyl siding a lot. Even during regular home inspections, we use them a lot. Here, I'm scanning an area that I know is wet. I'm going from the known dry area to the suspected wet area. I say suspected. I know it's wet. I already set up this test on an area on a wall that I knew we had problems with. And you can see every time I'm passing over the wet area, it gives me a lot of indication that there is water inside this wall. I like using moisture meters on wood siding too. The important part is always use it at the top part of any lap. That's going to be the thinnest part. And as you can see here, it's picking up a lot of moisture content. Very useful for scanning through the wood siding. Moisture meters are great at scanning through tile. We use them around tiled showers all the time. Very useful for that. It's also useful to use these around toilets. We scan just about every tiled floor around a toilet, or vinyl, or whatever type of surface you have. And then finally, if you own some deep wall probes and you want to do some testing, here's how you do it. You got to get really lucky. You got to have an outlet or something like that that's really close by. At this particular home, I was concerned about the way they had flashed around the window. I was thinking there may be water getting into the wall here. The outlet wasn't quite as close as I would have wanted it, but it was close enough. So I plug in my deep wall probes and I do a little demonstration here. Taking a test on that deeper wall. And if they hit moisture, it'll let me know. I'll just test it on my hand there, my sweaty palm. And now I'm going to take those probes and I'm going to stick them right along the side of the outlet box into the wall sheathing. And as you can see on my moisture meter, that light is going from green to yellow and kind of right up against the red zone as I start to get all the way deep in this wall and I start to push them harder against that sheathing. So this is a wet area, and this is a way of kind of cheating where we're almost doing intrusive testing, but it's technically not intrusive. This does not do any type of damage to the wall surface. And when I'm all done, I simply put the cover plate back on and nobody knows I was ever there. Okay, that was a lot of examples. I surely haven't covered half of the stuff that you could potentially use these things for, but the idea of this video was to give you a basic understanding of how these things work and how to use them. If you are a home inspector or anybody else who's just getting one for the first time and you want to go out and figure out how this thing works, do it. Do a ton of experimenting with this. Use it for a few months before you ever use it in a professional setting where you're getting paid to report on anything with this. Understand your tool, understand the limitations, know what a false positive is, and I encourage you, try scanning on concrete. You'll find that concrete always pegs this. Moisture meters like this are useless on concrete. They're calibrated for wood. Don't go anywhere near concrete because you're going to be giving your clients useless information. Okay, hope this was helpful. I'm Ruben Saltzman with Structure Tech Home Inspections. Thanks for watching. Take care.